Welcome, friends, to this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So I hope that you are all able to receive the last mailing I sent out and looked over the attachment once again for the readings that we're going to go over this evening. Now, there was one question sent in, and we'll get to that. But so in the previous weeks, we were, going over the sutta in which the Buddha was asking the monks which one state, if cultivated, made much of, brings 4 states to completion. What 4 states, if made much of, complete 7 states? And what do the 7 states, if made much of, cultivated, bring complete 2 states? Now, so as we saw the 4 states, what do 4 states cultivated bring 7 states to completion? So the 4 states are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So the first state, the mindfulness of breathing, brings the 4 foundations of mindfulness to completion. And the 4 foundations of mindfulness, if developed, made much of, bring the 7 factors of enlightenment to completion. So that group of 7 refers to the 7 factors of enlightenment. We've gone over these before, but I'm going to go over them again in this context. Now, so just assume we've been cultivating the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And so I'm going to read now from the sutta. At such a time as a person dwells contemplating the body in the body, feelings in feelings, mental states in mental states, and mental objects in mental objects, ardent and composed, at that time his mindfulness is energized and the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is established in that person. Then it is that the noble disciple is cultivating the enlightenment factor of mindfulness. And by continued cultivation, it comes to completion in him. So the first of the 7 factors of enlightenment is mindfulness. So we've already been practicing the mindfulness of breathing, and once we get the mind centered and grounded in the body, we start contemplating the body in its various aspects, contemplating the 4 postures, getting the mind more grounded in the present moment, and examining the body as just 32 different parts put together. None of them by themselves is a body, it's just a part. But when they're all put together nice and neatly, we say, oh, that's my body. Anyway, this is a part of this kind of investigation of Dhamma. Now, as you're practicing mindfulness, especially if you're following the 4 foundations of mindfulness again, because really the practice of mindfulness, according to the Buddha, is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And all 4, not just one aspect of mindfulness, but all 4. So as you're practicing dissecting the body, that's the investigation. What is this body anyway? Okay, it's made up of these different parts. What are the parts made up of? The 4 elements. And then the elements can be broken down into just molecules and cells, cellular vibrations, as we've talked about before. So that's as you develop the mindfulness, again, according to the Satipatthana, then you are investigating the Dhamma. You're investigating the body. And so to go on, it says, as such time as the meditator is thus dwelling mindful, he investigates those states by insight, comes to close scrutiny of them, sees them as impermanent, as a source of suffering if we cling to them, and without any inherent owner or controller, or without any individual soul. So that is the investigation of the Dhamma. And then it is said that the enlightenment factor of Dhamma investigation is being cultivated. And when much practiced, it comes to completion in that person. So the Dhamma investigation means investigating the body in its various ways to see how it's made up of cells that are constantly interacting, vibrating, changing, impermanent. It's arising, cells are rising and dying, being born and dying every second, really. Some cells of our body just, last a few seconds or more. Some last longer, some last even longer. But, they all just are being born and dying and being replaced. So that is how we try to, by directly feeling it. It's not an intellectual thing, but by being mindful and being grounded in the body, having weakened the hindrances, you can see how quickly all these body vibrations are arising and vanishing. And with them are the feelings. So you're contemplating the feelings, the second factor of mindfulness, the second foundation of mindfulness of feelings, the painful and pleasant feelings. So all these material vibrations, sound vibrations, visible vibrations, odor, flavor vibrations, they're all triggering off either a pleasant reaction or an unpleasant reaction, or a neutral reaction. Most of them are neutral, but the ones that affect us the most, the ones we create karma around, the ones we get attached to, are the pleasant and painful sensations. So these are called feelings that are not different from the sensations. They're the tone of the sensation. But you investigate how we get easily attached to these feelings. And then we start to crave them or hate them. We desire the pleasurable feelings, and we have aversion to and want to get away from the painful feelings. And we create the karma around them. So this is part of that investigation of feelings and how they're really our whole world revolves around our craving and aversion to these feelings that are basically produced by the material vibrations. And so these are the aggregates, the part of the aggregates, the body aggregate, the feelings aggregate, and then the perceptions aggregate, and the mental formations aggregate, or the sankharas. So that's how you investigate. You investigate the feelings, and then the mental states. All of our mental states are triggered off by the feelings. And then you come to the fourth foundation of mindfulness, which is the contemplating the five aggregates and the six senses, and seeing how all these things are interconnected. And especially in terms of the anicca, dukkha, and anatta. That all these five aggregates are constantly changing and impermanent. And if you cling to them, it causes stress and suffering. And basically there's no owner or controller. I mean, you see that through observing it, but you have to be in a deep state of awareness and to do that. So anyway, that's how the 4 foundations of mindfulness bring the 7 factors of enlightenment to completion. So we talked about mindfulness and investigation of Dhamma. So this is the general practice of meditation that people are practicing, especially what I'm trying to suggest you to practice in most of these meditation sessions. And then the third enlightenment factor is the energy. When you start investigating and you start seeing, investigating with mindfulness, with developed mindfulness, and you start getting deeper insights, you get a lot of energy. I mean, you want to see what's next. So there's always something next, and each different sensation, sound, thought, feeling, it gives you something additional to see as impermanent or not self, in the conditioning in it. And so it's interesting. Of course, you have to be interested in the practice. Other people might say, that's so boring. So, but that's the deal. That's why you can't even get to this state without first having cultivated faith and, mindfulness and so on. So the enlightenment factor of energy, it helps you to sit through pain. It helps you to sit longer. You don't, you stop clinging and reacting to various pains or other distractions, and the mind gets very concentrated. Even though we call it the enlightenment factor of energy, it's very concentrated. It's a state of concentrated energy, the energy to stay focused in the moment. And that brings joy, because when you learn something new, it brings a kind of a happiness or joy. You're seeing how quickly that sound just arose and vanished. You're seeing how quickly, when you stopped reacting to that pain, it stopped, bothering you so much, when you develop some detachment to it, and you saw, oh yeah, I didn't have to scratch, I didn't have to move, it brings joy. So this is the enlightenment factor of joy. And both that energy and joy keeps the mind concentrated. A lot of people think it's distracting. No, it's not distracting. It increases your concentration even. And so we're up to the 4 factors of enlightenment: the mindfulness, investigation, energy, and joy. These are developed in that order. It's a gradual unfolding that one leads to another. It's a stepping stone. You just can't immediately start, let me cultivate joy. No, you have to do the homework, You have to get there step by step. And that's why a lot of people, they wind up getting confused, or they wind up, being frustrated. Why aren't things happening as fast as they should, or whatever. So anyway, so the enlightenment factor of the joy leads to the body and mental tranquility, called passaddhi, the enlightenment factor of body and mental tranquility. And that joy is also, you're starting to experience the jhana factor. So the mind is getting deeply concentrated. That is part of the piti and the sukha. You're beginning to experience that even while you're practicing this vipassana awareness. That's why a lot of people, they get confused. They think, piti and sukha only comes when you're practicing a one-pointed concentration in something called the jhana. No, you get it also while practicing mindfulness, if you've been cultivating it step by step. So you're starting to, that body and mental tranquility is part of, is increasing the concentration. And so that's the 5th enlightenment factor. that the sixth one is concentration. So, and that refers to the jhana. By that point, you probably are in the first jhanic level of meditation. Now, some people may argue, no, you can't practice vipassana in jhana. There's some people who say that, but if you examine the Buddhist teachings, I don't think you'll see that. Anyway, we don't want to get into those kind of arguments at this point. So anyway, that's how that the energy, the joy, body mental tranquility leads to the concentration, and that concentration generally it has those jhana factors in it, and it's equal to really the first level of jhana, and then actually this next part it makes it more clear, where the seventh factor of enlightenment following the concentration is equanimity. And if you're familiar with the suttas, equanimity, or you're familiar with the formulation of the jhanas, equanimity occurs in the third and the fourth jhana. And it's a very purified mental state. So you're, by the time you reach the enlightenment factor of energy, that concentration should be at the level of a third or fourth jhana. But it's grounded in the present moment. It's not absorbed in one object. It's concentrated in the present moment, and it can see how things are arising and vanishing very, very quickly. Again, it's like the microscope being turned up to a high level, like the power of 500 or maybe 1,000. And you're seeing how quickly each vibration, the five aggregates, are arising and vanishing. And with the equanimity, you're no longer reacting to any of them. This is the important part. You're no longer reacting. And at this point is where, now the person had a question. Actually, let me just read the rest of that sutra. At such time as unwavering energy is established in the meditator, so investigating and examining those states, then the enlightenment factor of energy is brought to completion. And there arises in him a joy for the energy which he has established, a joy not connected with sensual pleasure. At such time as the joy not connected with the sensual pleasures arises in the meditator, whose energy is established, the enlightenment factor of joy is being cultivated. And owing to continued cultivation, it comes to completion. One who is filled with joy, the body is tranquilized and the mind is tranquilized. At such time as the body and mind of one who is joyous are tranquilized, the enlightenment factor of tranquility is being cultivated. And owing to the continued cultivation, it comes to completion. In him that person whose body and mind are tranquilized, the mind becomes concentrated. So this is the exact formula of the progress in the meditation. And when a noble disciple whose body and mind is tranquil, who is concentrated, at that time the enlightenment factor of concentration is established. And with continued practice, it comes to completion. That means it might go from the first jhana to the second jhana to the third jhana and to the fourth jhana even. He who is thus concentrated and composed becomes a thoroughly disinterested onlooker of his body and mind, especially of the mind. Now, Ananda, when a noble disciple is a thoroughly disinterested onlooker of his mind, thus composed, at such time the enlightenment factor of equanimity is established. And owing to continued practice, again, not just one time, continued practice, it comes to completion in him or her. Thus cultivated, Ananda, thus made much of the four foundations of mindfulness, complete the seven factors of enlightenment. So in that description of the factors of enlightenment, you can see it's a step-by-step progression, and each one is a stepping stone to the next one. Now, the person who sent in the question, his question was to explain what is this disinterested onlooker of the body and mind. So this is the equanimity. When you gain equanimity, you're no longer interested in any of the things that are coming and going. And also you see the suffering in identifying and clinging to any mental states. Or you observe the craziness of your mind, but you're no longer taking it as me or mine. It's like you become disinterested in a movie, because in meditation and the Vipassana practice, it's very much like going to the movie theater. And you get up into the balcony seat and you're looking at the movie. And if it's an interesting movie, you get interested in it. If it's a boring movie, you don't get interested in it. So you have to make the body interesting by investigating it. That's how you make it interesting, by investigating it and observing it, not investigating it intellectually, but through this focused concentration. You're seeing how quickly things are coming and going, and you see that the domino effect within the body and mind and the interconnections between vibration, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. You're examining the aggregates, but you're examining it with that laser beam focus of a power of 500 or 1,000 powered microscope. That's what makes it interesting. That's why a scientist, he wouldn't get interested if his microscope only went up to the power of 20, because you can't see anything further. But with continued practice, and developing those other aspects of the practice, you're building up that, you're turning up the power of the microscope. And that's why it becomes interesting. First you just saw cells, then you go, what are these little things? Oh, they're molecules. Well, look at these molecules. Now, turn it up more. What are these little things? Atoms or electrons. Wow. Atoms. And then turn up that more, electrons. So, that's how science has come to be, right? Okay. But of course they had microscopes, but in the Dharma practice, we're using the inbuilt microscope of concentration, or of the mind itself, if we know how to use the mind in the right way and make it a tool and develop that tool of concentration, then that is how you develop this practice. So the disinterested onlooker is the state of equanimity. So unless you reach that state of equanimity, then you may not get that sense of just being a disinterested onlooker. But that's why in the meditation practice, in almost all the guided meditations, near the end of them, or even while we're starting, I said, try to feel the outline of the body. If you can keep that outline of the body in the mind's eye, that's where all the five aggregates are coming and going. You can see sensations coming and going in different places. Then you see the feelings that are triggered off by those sensations. You see the perceptions, how the mind creates mental labels and images out of just these vibrations. It's very interesting. Make it interesting. That's how, you by keeping the outline of the body, that's like, that's the movie theater. It's because the world is coming and going through this body with its mind. And then you see how, all the sort of craziness that's within our mind, right? When it's reacting to so many things. And so you get that detachment. Or even when you built up to that level already, because you've given up clinging and reacting already through the previous stages of the meditation, then the sense of I starts getting weaker and weaker, because you're developing this perception of anatta, or no self. You're seeing how all these things are just happening by themselves. You're not asking them to. You're not saying, hey, sound, come over, come through my ear now, or all these different body sensations. You're not telling them to come in. No, they come by themselves. And even your own thoughts. You get angry at something. Well, why do I get angry? I don't want to be angry, but you get angry anyway. Or have lustful thoughts, or so many other mental states. So this is how you investigate. And saying, I'm not doing this. This is all a product of past karma. This is part of that investigation. And that's what leads to this sort of disinterested onlooking awareness, or what I call detached onlooking awareness, is a very advanced level of vipassana meditation. And it sort of short circuits the reactive part of our brain. Or the reactive, it shifts the nervous system from the sympathetic mode or the reactive mode to the parasympathetic mode, which is the more centered and relaxed vibration of the nervous system. And that's gone through by having developed the mindfulness and the concentration, and through the practice of the mindfulness and developing restraint and so on, non-reacting to things. There's a metamorphosis of the mind starts to evolve, like a caterpillar starts spinning a cocoon, right? And so it goes inside this cocoon as a caterpillar, but then it morphs into and comes out as like a butterfly. So our ego goes into the meditation in the beginning. Yes, I'm the meditator. I'm trying to meditate and do this. And but as you're developing the four foundations of mindfulness, as you're developing the insights, you see that this idea of an I or me is basically an illusion. And you stop identifying with it so much. And gradually, if you're able to maintain that long enough, the sense of I starts fading out of the consciousness. And it's a very radical, transformative experience. A lot of people come to that point and they get scared because they think, oh, I'm starting to disappear. What's going to happen? So they get jerked back into thinking and all that. So that's why that equanimity has to be established to prevent the mind from, reacting in that way, so they can really enjoy the experience. But anyway, so that onlooking awareness, that the detached onlooking awareness, is the effect of all of that previous meditation, basically. Because even with the first foundation of mindfulness of the body, at the end, the Buddha says, and mindfulness established just with for the extent of gaining insight and not clinging it to I or me or mine. And the same with all the other four foundations of mindfulness. And while you're doing that, these 7 factors of enlightenment are being cultivated. So that's how we have to understand, and we have to see the interconnection of these different things that we read about in the suttas, or in the teachings of the Dhamma, about the five hindrances, right? They're the ones that are blocking our ability to see this, and then developing mindfulness, concentration, spiritual faculties, and then the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So That's how those four foundations of mindfulness bring the seven factors of enlightenment to completion. And so I'm going to stop there for this week, and next week continue with the next section of that, or the next sutra that follows, if you're following in the book, on page 163, in sort of balancing the factors of enlightenment. We're going to talk about those next week. So now, is there any other questions that any of you might have based on what we've just been discussing? Doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat box, but if any of you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you could do that.
Bhante, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Yes.
And I feel that Buddha was a very smart psychologist, much smarter than the modern psychologists that we have around us.
Or even the traditional older psychologists, like even Freud and
yes.
And what's the other one? Famous one. Anyway, he went beyond them.
Yes, yes. Because the way I think he penetrated into the nature of the mind, I don't think, at least in my lifetime, I don't see anybody else.
That's because those psychologists were kind of just basing their understanding primarily on observing patients and talking with patients, and then coming to these various conclusions that Freud and who's that other one? Skips my mind. Some of you must know that name. The more famous Jung.
Who?
Jung and Freud.
Yeah.
Jung and Freud are considered to be the more contemporary or most modern of the psychologists.
Right, right.
That people study,
Right.
But the Buddha, because he had developed his powers of concentration and mindfulness and uses meditation, he was able to understand the nature of the mind at even a deeper level, and especially about the ego and the
Yes.
transcendence of the ego.
Yes.
In modern psychology, most of them try to just make work with people who have distorted egos or mental problems, and they're trying to make them normal, right? So,
Yeah.
Bring a person back to normal. But the Buddha went beyond normal to the supernormal in even letting go of a normal ego.
Right, right. Yeah, so Bhante, the treatments that the modern psychiatrists offer to a depressed person, if you take Buddha's meditation and his guidelines seriously, with regularity and diligence, I think it is much, much better than all those antidepressants that the psychiatrists offer us.
No, absolutely, that's true. But the problem is most people that are, have these conditions will not be able to meditate very effectively so usually a lot of psychologists, or even sometimes I would advise some person who's been, let's say, on antidepressants, for example, not to discontinue that and thinking that meditation alone is going to overcome this depression. Now, of course, people are different and so on. So, because I've seen it firsthand, that people have rejected their medicine, think, oh, I'm just going to meditate, meditation can cure it. And a few months later, they committed suicide. So it didn't work. So that's why, that has to be gradually developed. So the medications are useful, but only up to a certain extent. And once a person is able, even on the medication, if they start to meditate, and maybe the medication helps them to stay a little bit more centered and composed, and maybe they can have a good meditation. And then hopefully some of them over time will be able to wean themselves off the medication. And that's what a lot of the psychologists today now do that. I know that. A lot of the Western psychologists who are meditators themselves, and there are more and more of them, they also are advising their people to meditate. And some of them can get off the medication and others may not. So.
Yeah, I think, Bhante, and antidepressants, I have observed myself with my own experience. I think taking antidepressants is a very individualistic experience. For some people, it works. I have some friends for whom it has worked very well. But then I have some others who, with the antidepressants, have gone to completely different direction, in the negative direction, I mean.
Yeah,
so for them, it's better not
they wouldn't
to.
have been able to meditate. I don't think they would have been able to meditate. The mind is that deep, trouble. Trying to meditate on one's own, especially, some might be able to do it, but, it's, again,
Yeah.
we should try, but, it's going to be difficult.
Right. What I'm saying is that the medication doesn't always work for everybody.
That's right. And meditation doesn't necessarily work for everybody as well if their minds are really disturbed. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting topic, when you think about these things, because the problems are so enormous in modern society, depression and these kind of things, when you analyze them.
Lifestyle that people have been caught up in, and they've left meditation to the end. They should have been meditating when they were much younger, but people leave it off because of their religious beliefs or whatever, or because they think it's difficult. They leave it to the end. So for most people that learn meditation, they're hoping it's going to be a crutch, but it wasn't made out to be that way. And so the better off people are starting to meditate when they get younger. Like even in schools, they'd be better off to do that. But religion, no, can't do that. And so there's all these forces that are blocking these great practices getting into the mainstream, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, friends. So, it's a big subject, but so let's take a little break and then come back and do some stretches and then sit down for our meditation. Okay. Okay, friends, go ahead and sit straight, comfortable in the sitting posture. Align your back and head in a straight line, so spinal column, neck vertebrae are in a straight line, to be able to relay all that life force vibration up to the brain, to have alertness, awareness. You gently close the eyes. Keep the chin lifted up level with the floor. Just gently close the eyes. Just feel the eyes in the sockets. The eyelid stretched over the eyeball. Just feel the outline of the head and face. Feel the sensations on your face. Just imagine this skin stretched over the front of the skull. Feel those stretched facial sensations. Feel the lips touching together. So let the awareness move the awareness down through the body, feeling the different body parts. From the head, just feel your shoulders, relax the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulder. Feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulder. Skin touching, clothing touching the skin of the arm. Just mentally remind yourself of sitting. Now feeling in the center of the body, to feel the chest, the stomach area. Take a couple of deep, slow breaths to feel the clothing rubbing against the skin of the chest, the stomach, ribcage. Feeling the other sensation in chest or stomach. Now feel the hands touching together, where they touch your leg. Try to feel the outline of your thumbs or fingers. And feel the buttocks pressing the seat. Feel that pressure, solid contact, the earth vibration of the body, pressing the earth vibration of the seat. It's part of the investigation of the body. Let the awareness move down the legs to feel your knees. How the knees are bent. Any sensations in your knees. Moving down the lower legs to the feet. Feel the heels, the arches and toes of the feet. Feel those subtle sensations. And just remind yourself of sitting, mindfulness of the body, sitting. And let the awareness kind of come back up through the body and rest on the eyes again. From that point on the eyes, just try to feel the outline of the whole body, all those different body parts we just went over. They all make up the sensation of perception, sitting body. And then begin some deep, slow breathing again, like we did in the yoga. Drawing the air from the lower lung up to the middle to the top of the lungs and chest. Hold the air in 2 seconds. And slowly breathe out. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. Just take a few more breaths like that, cultivating this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10. Try to develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. On the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. I'll do the counting for you, just try to follow that. With the contracting out breath, also count to 1. Feeling the last bit of air go out of the lung. The next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. out 7, in 8, out 8, in 9, out 9, in 10, out 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breathing return to its shorter, uncontrolled, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel it. Keep your attention focused in the center of the body. Feel the residual expanding and contracting sensation. Just follow those with close awareness, knowing when the breath is coming in, feeling the brief pause, knowing when the breath is going out. Feel the brief pause. If it helps you to stay focused, you can make these brief mental reminders. In sitting, out, out, sitting, breath by breath, moment by moment. During the brief pauses between the breaths, feel the outline of the body. Remember you're sitting. In sitting, out, out, sitting. If you still have a lot of thoughts, you can try counting your breaths from 1 to 10 again by yourself. If you get lost in the counting along the way, start again counting at 1. Just letting your thoughts come and go in the back of the mind, keeping the sensations of the sitting body, breathing body in the front of the awareness. In each out breath, allowing the body and mind to relax more and more to the present moment. Being alert for any of the hindrances arising, applying the appropriate antidote, coming back to refocusing the breathing. Once the mind has become more relaxed and centered in the breathing body, just be alert for other sensations in the body coming and going. Contemplating the body, first foundation of mindfulness. All those different sensations you feel, the bodily vibration, being alert for how quickly different sensations come and go. The heartbeat, the pulse of blood, itchy, prickly sensation, aches or pain. Being alert for any unpleasant or painful sensation, rather trigger off your thoughts, worry. Just try to cultivate that detached, onlooking awareness of this breathing body. Behind the breathing, the heart beating, blood pulsing. So many other different sensations. They're all constantly changing. To feeling more subtler sensations coming and going, observing unpleasant sensations, pleasant sensations. Be aware of the thoughts triggered off by those sensations. Being aware of any mental states, is the mind distracted, concentrated, confused. Just try to get the feeling of sitting in a movie theater, just watching the play of the body and mind. Sitting, breathing body, sensory impressions coming through the senses, mind thinking about them, reacting, getting agitated, concentrated, joy arising. It's cultivating the detached, onlooking awareness. This five aggregate body and mind, undergoing impermanence from moment to moment. Be aware of the sense of I or me. It's there in the consciousness. Staying alert, awake, centered in the breathing body, breath by breath, moment by moment, noticing more and subtler details, sensations arising and vanishing. Aware of 5 aggregates of material vibrations, feelings generated by them, memory and thoughts about them, any reactions to them, liking, disliking, even a sense of I, me, or mine there in the mind. It's cultivating that detached, onlooking awareness. The mind is quiet enough, just try to feel like an empty house, with nobody at home to answer the call, knocking at the doors and windows. It's just a silent awareness. And that is seen very clearly as the enlightenment factor of mindfulness. You can clearly see how things are constantly changing. You can be aware of the flow of impermanence, the enlightenment factor of investigation. If any joy or happiness is arising because of the meditation, it's the enlightenment factor of joy. Nati janam apanyacha anyanati ajaitu yam hi janancha panyacha siri nibbana santiki dukkha patta ca niddukkha bhayapatta ca nibbaya sokapatta ca nisokha ontu sabbe pipanino. There's no meditation without the wisdom, no wisdom without meditation. One who is both meditating and wise is close to peace and freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now mindfully place your hands at the edge of the knees. Take a deep, slow breath. As you breathe in, stretch the head back, pull the hands on your knees to arch the lower spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. You lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, so this brings our evening Dhamma discussion and meditation to an end. I hope you all had at least a few moments of some peaceful meditation going there. And I hope you begin to understand how all these different aspects that we've been talking about, how they kind of fit together. Mindfulness of breathing helps to get centered in the body, to contemplate the four foundations of mindfulness. Now, when that's developed, all your other mental faculties get developed and sharpened.